National Farm Worker Awareness Week and had various events across campus. And we also have our friends from the University of Idaho here who did also put on events for National Farm Worker Awareness Week on their campus. And so we're, yay! So I'm very grateful, and it's an honor and privilege to be here to be with you all and share this moment. We will have, as a matter of program and flow, we'll have a land acknowledgement and labor acknowledgement. And then after that, I'm going to turn the time over to our very own Pullman Chancellor, Dr. Elizabeth Chilton, who also is the Provost and Executive Vice President for WSU. And then after Dr. Chilton's remarks, we'll be able to move on to the next part of the program to hear from Dolores Huerta. For a labor acknowledgement and a land acknowledgement, we'd like to start with acknowledging America's first peoples. Washington State University acknowledges that its locations statewide are on the homelands of Native peoples who have lived in this region from time immemorial. Currently, there are 42 tribes, 35 of which are federally recognized, that share traditional homelands and waterways in what is now Washington State. Some of these nations are and confederacies that represent multiple tribes and bands, and the university expresses its deepest respect and gratitude towards these original and current caretakers of the region. As an academic community, we acknowledge our responsibility to establish and maintain relationships with these tribes and Native peoples in support of tribal sovereignty and the inclusion of their voices in teaching research and programming at Washington State University, and Washington State University has established the Office of Tribal Relations and Native American programs to guide us in our relationship with tribes and service to Native American students and communities. We also pledge that these relationships will consist of mutual trust, respect, and reciprocity. We also acknowledge that our nation and our institutions have benefited from free and enslaved labor of Black people. We recognize the interconnected histories of Indigenous peoples who were forcibly removed from their land and the history of those who were forcibly brought to it. We acknowledge the enduring impacts of the African diaspora, honor the contributions, talents, and dreams of our Black communities. We also acknowledge the critical immigrant and domestic labor force that has contributed to this country and made industries including voluntary, involuntary, trafficked, forced, and undocumented peoples, and those working in migrant and seasonal farm working jobs. We recognize and honor their important contributions. And now, I'd like to turn the time over to Chancellor Chilton for a few remarks.
Well, thank you, Michael, Ms. Huerta, and everyone joining us here in Pullman and online across our system. It's really an honor to be here today with all of you and to welcome you at the tail end of National Farm Workers Awareness Week at WSU. The priority of our land grant mission is to provide accessible education to all, and we're proud to serve as the educational home of a growing body of students who themselves or their families are engaged in the production of our state's agricultural products. Recognizing those efforts and helping our students obtain a college degree are fundamental to elevating our communities and our state. Today, we have an incredible opportunity to hear from a true advocate and change maker, Dolores Huerta. This event, along with several others scheduled throughout the WSU system this year, form a small part of our commitment to promoting inclusion, diversity, equity, and a culture of belonging for our faculty, our staff, and our students. And finally, I would like to recognize the leadership and support of the community leaders across our state, the incredible leadership teams of our campuses and extension sites, and our government officials. I'm thrilled that joining us today are representatives from the offices of Senator Cantwell, Senator Murray, and Congresswoman McMorris Rodgers. Thank you all again, and Michael, back to you.
Thank you very much, Chancellor Chilton. We are always thankful for partners in helping put these events and programming together. Dolores Huerta is a civil rights activist and community organizer. She has worked for labor rights and social justice for over 50 years. And in 1962, She and Cesar Chavez founded the United Farm Workers Union. She serves as vice president and played a critical role in many of the union's accomplishments for 4 decades. In 2002, she received the Puffin National $100,000 prize for creative citizenship, which she used to establish the Dolores Huerta Foundation. DHF is connecting groundbreaking community-based organizations to state and national movements to register and educate voters, advocate for education reform, bring about infrastructure improvements in low-income communities, advocate for greater equality for the LGBTQ community, and create strong leadership development. She has received numerous awards, among them the Eleanor Roosevelt Human Rights Award from President Clinton in 1998. In 2012, President Obama bestowed Dolores with the Presidential Medal of Freedom, the highest civilian honor in the United States. She also wanted to tell me to let you all know that she has been arrested over 20 times in the service of protesting and gaining rights and activism. She also was inducted into the National Women's History Museum Hall of Fame and is just an all-around awesome person who took the trip up to small little Pullman to come speak with us. So please help me welcome to the stage Dolores Huerta, founder and president of the Dolores Huerta Foundation.
Buenos dias. Good morning. How's everybody? I mean, it's good afternoon. I'm sorry. Yeah. Can you all see me? A little bit? Maybe we should put this through. Now I'm bigger. It's so nice to see all of you, and I want to thank you for inviting me to be here with you. And we are celebrating so many things right now. As you all know, we just celebrated Cesar Chavez Day, okay? Un aplauso para Cesar Chavez. And, I just want to share with you, and I know that they have the CAMP program here at this university, and that is such an important program. And I don't know, anybody here attend the HEP program? I mean, the HEP program for high school kids, anybody here? Well, I just want to say that that's another program, as you know, for high school kids. And my son, Emilio Huerta, and Paul Chavez, Cesar Chavez's son, attended the HEP program, okay? And my two daughters, Lori and Celeste, actually attended the first HEP program at the University of Eugene, Oregon, the very, 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 very first HEP program. And I know, like a lot of farm worker kids, often that we don't really get a good quality education. And it's not your fault or their fault, you know? And it's just because, unfortunately, some people out there, they don't think that kids of color, students of color, deserve an equality education. And that all comes from slavery. You know, slavery, in slavery times, it was illegal for people to learn how to read and write. You know, they couldn't do that, the slaves. And so a lot of things that we suffer come from slavery. Just the whole idea that anybody has to work all of their lives, give their life's energy to make other people rich, really? That's what slavery is about. And we see that happening in today's world with farm workers and other workers, right? And again, when they try to form a union, they try to break that union because they don't want the workers to have power. And that also is where racism comes from. You know, because in order to justify treating people of color, denigrating them, trying to make them feel inferior, trying to justify the way that they treat workers and people of color. They do that, say, because the color of their skin somehow makes it right for them to be treated differently, right? Or to be oppressed. And so, and that also then goes over to women, the way women are treated and the way children are treated, okay? That all comes from the legacy of slavery and colonization. And so we see in today's world that this is what we're fighting against right now, because people are saying, chale, ya basta, okay? We want to get rid of racism. We want to get rid of misogyny. We want to get rid of homophobia. You know, these are things that we don't want in our society anymore. And there are some people that are actually trying to stop this. So right now, we are going through what I call awakening, because a lot of people realize now, so, hey, this is why we have been treated so badly. And it's not our fault, you know? It's not our fault. This is part of the colonization of people of color that has happened throughout the centuries. And so it's really important that we start teaching the legacy of slavery in all of our schools. I don't know what's happening here in the state of Washington, but in California, ethnic studies is now a required subject, okay? In every high school, they have to take ethnic studies. And that's important when we think of ethnic studies. What does that mean for the Latino population? You know, I like to tell people, Google a map of the United States before 1848. Google it, and what do you find out? That 1/3 of the United States was Mexico. 1/3 of the United States was Mexico, okay? And so, you know, we hear a lot of talk about Russia invading the Ukraine and taking away their property. Hey, well, that's what happened to Mexico. In the Mexican-American War, the United States took 50% of Mexico. Half of Mexico became the United States. And when we think of people at the border that are seeking asylum, you know, trying to say, you know, we'd like to come into the United States, hey, let's look at history. North America continent, the South American continent, this is the home of the indigenous people of the Americas, okay? People from Mexico, from Guatemala, from Peru, this is their home. They're, you know, this. So when they tell us to go back where we came from, we say, hey, we are where we came from, right? We are where we came from. And somehow we have to teach our young people in schools, you know, because we come from great civilizations. You know, the Peruvians, the Aztecs, they had, did you all know Mexico City has always been the biggest city in the world? Even way back then, okay, in ancient times. And they had great irrigation systems, great astronomers, you know, very advanced systems, you know, and even though, unfortunately, that is not taught in our schools. And it's important so that we can have pride in our own history, in our own heritage. But then we have to learn how to fight against all of that ignorance, okay? And there's people in the United States right now that they want to ban books. They want to make sure that our history is not taught. And so this is what we're up against, what we're fighting. But then we also have to do some work in our own community, too. Because I'm going to just say this. I don't know how many of you will agree with me. But when a baby is born, what do people say? Qué bonita la niña, está bien güerita. Don't they say that? Instead of saying, that baby is beautiful because that baby is dark skinned. Está prieto, or prieta, right? It has slanted eyes, high cheekbones, maybe a chato nose or an Aztec nose, okay? This is the beauty that we have to celebrate, our indigenous beauty. Do you all agree? All right, thank you for that. So we have to take it upon ourselves that we are going to be celebrating that, okay? We have to take it upon ourselves. And out there, one of you I know is going to come up with a better word than Latinx. I'm not going to argue about the word, but I just want to say this. We got to come up with a word that celebrates our indigenous roots, okay? Our indigenous roots. So I hope somebody out there can do that. And while we're doing all of this fighting and protesting that we have to do right now, we know what are the things that we need. We need universal health care, free health care. Yes, we need free college education. We need free daycare for women, right? Free daycare for women. But how are we going to get this? So we can say, well, we can march and we can protest, but that's not going to make it. That's not going to make it. And the reason I say this is because, when you think the United States of America, we are the richest country in the world. The richest country in the world. So if you can have countries in Europe, like Denmark, some of the Scandinavian countries, what do they have that we don't have? Just what I said. Free healthcare, free college education, free daycare for the women. They have little countries like Cuba. Cuba has free universal education, free college education, and they also have a free healthcare for everybody. And Cuba's a little teeny country that has an economic boycott by the United States of America, So if they can do this in Cuba, why can't we do it here in the United States? The richest country in the world, okay? And one of the reasons why is because although we're a very rich country, 90% of the wealth, la riqueza, of the United States of America is in the hands of 10% of the corporations and the wealthy families, like the Waltons that own Walmart. Friends don't let their friends shop at Walmart. Think about that. Okay? So, but the only way that we can change that is by making sure that people get involved and that people vote, and that we can choose people to our Congress and to our state legislatures so we can start fighting that. Like President Biden wants to do, he wants to make the rich people pay more taxes, okay? Pay more taxes so that we could not rob you of your future education. So this is why it's important that people register to vote, that they vote. Now, in our Latino community, we have a lot of people that could be citizens, even though they've been here for generations, and they haven't become citizens, okay? We have a lot of people that can register to vote, but they haven't registered to vote, okay? I'm going to show you something right now. Let's pretend that this is the Latino population right now of the United States, okay? These, I'm going to fold this in half. These are the people that can become citizens, okay? But haven't. And these are the people that have become citizens, right? These are the people that are registered to vote. And these are the people that vote. ¿Qué pasó? Yeah, we don't like that picture, no? That's not a good picture. Because the only way that we're going to get the things that we need is by getting people to vote. And I know a young student came up to me recently and said, what else can we do besides voting? And I said, there's no other game in town. There's no other game in town. This is the only one. So when we go out there and we protest and we march, we got to take that march to the ballot box. Make it to the ballot box. When George Floyd was killed, we saw millions of people marching all over the world and here in the United States of America. But the law that they tried to pass in the Congress didn't make it for police reform. It didn't make it. It got out of the House of Representatives and it got stuck in the Senate and it never passed. I'm going to give you another one. Amnesty, legalization. In 1986, we passed the amnesty bill. I worked on that bill for 4 months in Congress to pass it. A lot of people think it was Ronald Reagan, Republican. No, it wasn't. It was Ted Kennedy, okay? Ted Kennedy, Senator Ted Kennedy, Schumer, who was now in charge of the Senate, Peter Rodino from New Jersey, and a congressman from California named Howard Berman. And we got thousands of people got their legalization. I'll bet there are people here in this audience who got their legalization under the Amnesty Bill of 1986. I see a hand over here. I see a hand over here. I see another hand over there, okay? How did we do that? By getting all of those people I mentioned elected to office. And we can do that again. And I see a lot of our migrant programs, and it says se quejan, se quejan. They complain. We need to get another amnesty. Well, you know what? We got to get out there and we got to get the people to do what? We got to get the people to what? Vote. We got to get the people to what? Vote. All right. And so that is our job, okay? That is our job. And who's going to do it? See, the one thing I learned when Cesar Chavez and I started to organize farm workers, because for years and years and years, people said, poor farm workers, poor farm workers. We used to go meeting after meeting. But Cesar and I had the good fortune to meet a man named Fred Ross Sr., okay? Does anybody know who that is? Do I see a hand out there? Anybody? Nobody, okay? He's a gringo, okay? He's a gringo. And I call him the father of the Chicano movement. Because this man, Fred Ross Sr., taught Cesar and myself, many other people, how to organize. And this is the lesson that he taught us, and I'm going to share it with you. We know that we have all of these things that we want to see. And we see all of the things that we want to improve and change. But you know what the secret is? That nobody is going to do it for us. Nobody is going to do it for us. We are the only ones that can do it for ourselves. And if we do not take the steps and the actions to make it happen, it's never going to happen, okay? That means that we all have to be responsible. This is a quote from Cesar. Cesar Chavez said this: when you go to school, you read about history, you write about history, you talk about history. But when you become involved, when you join a movement, when you become an activist, guess what? You make history. You make history. Think about that, okay? And what does getting involved mean? It just means that you're going to give some of your time, which is the most precious thing that you have, to go out there and do the work. What's the work? The work is talking to people, convincing them that they have power, that they can make the changes, that they don't have to wait for somebody else. And it takes a lot of us, doing that. And sometimes we feel shy. And we say, oh, people are going to put me down or they're going to make fun of me. And we feel intimidated. And we have butterflies, okay? We get ansias when we try to talk to people about joining the movement and going out there and helping join a march or go out door to door to get people registered to vote. But you know what? Those ansias that we feel, those butterflies in our stomach, that's just normal. That's natural. It's like when you exercise and your muscles hurt, you know you're doing the right thing, right? You know? And so when you get involved and you become an activist, after a while, those ansias, the butterflies, they get less and less and less. And you get stronger and stronger and stronger. And I call it emotional fortitude, all right? So if you're shy, it'll go away little by little. But we have to start doing that, okay? Otherwise, nothing changes. And another thing I want to share with you too, and I want you to share this with your families, and this is really important. I talked about the discrimination against people of color, right? And there is one scientific fact, and I want you to share this with your families. We only have one human race, one. Does anybody know the scientific name of our human race? Somebody shout it out. Yes, Homo sapiens. That is our species on this planet, okay? And does anybody know where our human race began? Africa. Think about that. Our human race began in Africa. And then our human race traveled across the planet, and it went to places that are cold, like Europe. And people lost the color of their skin, got different color eyes, different color hair. Now they have to go to the tanning salon or the beach to get their color back. And we have to remember that we are one human family, and we are all Africans. I'm going to say it again. We are all Africans of different shades and color. Now I want you to do something. Take the hand of the person next to you. Wake them up if they fell asleep. Turn to the person next to you. Take their hand. Turn to them and say, hello, relative. Hola, pariente. So it's so important that we remember this, that we are one human family. And the only way that we survived on planet Earth is because we took care of each other. We protected each other. We shared what we had. Had we not done this, we would not have survived because we are the smallest of the mammals, okay? They would have had us for lunch. But they didn't because of the fact that we protected each other, okay? We took care of each other. And the pandemic taught us that also, right? The pandemic taught us that we had to protect each other. You know, we had to wear our masks. We had to make sure that we were not, you know, in places where we could contaminate other people. We had to get vaccinated. And now we have to get boosters. And that's part of protecting each other. Because this is, again, the way that we could survive. Because we know that our planet right now is in jeopardy. We have climate change, we have tornadoes, we have droughts, we have floods, you know, snowstorms and things that are extreme. And so these are part of the things that we all have to know that is happening right now and that we have to be prepared for. And I know that we have a lot of different issues right now that we're fighting. And sometimes we have to think, oh, it's too overwhelming, I can't do it all. And that's true, we can't do it all, but we can do some of it. You know, we can volunteer to make sure that we can help some of these organizations that are working on these different issues, okay? So, there's other things too, I talked about voting. Now, a lot of us, because we, like myself, were Catholics or come from evangelical backgrounds, and some of the traditions out there and things that we have been taught, sometimes we have to undo those things, okay? Machismo, abajo. Let's all say it. Abajo. Abajo, okay? These are some of the things we want to get rid of. Discrimination against women. Some of the states in the United States of America, like Texas, okay, Tennessee, places like that, they are trying to criminalize women. They're trying to take away women's reproductive rights, okay? They're trying to take away women's right to abortion. Now, when I say that, I know all of you going, because we know what we were taught as Catholics or evangelicals. Well, you know what we have to say to that? Number one, nobody should tell a woman what to do with her body, okay? No political figure, no religious figure. Only a woman can decide what she will do with her body, okay? And there was a Catholic saint, actually, St. Thomas Aquinas, who said that a fetus is not a person until it's born. A fetus doesn't have a soul until it's born. Now, I am the mother of 11 children. I have one of my daughters with me right now, Maria Elena. Maria Elena only has one child. Her sister Juanita has 0. She's got a dog named Bruno. And I respect my daughter's choice, right, to have one child or no child. And this is what we have to do. Whatever a woman or a family's decision is, how many kids they want to have or not have, that is their business and nobody else's, okay? No, that is their business, nobody else's. And for those people that are confused on the issue, I'm going to give you the words of a famous Mexican president. I think some of you may have heard of him. Benito Juarez, okay? Benito Juarez from Oaxaca. And he was the president after they got the independence from Spain and Mexico. And his famous words were this: El respeto al derecho ajeno es la paz. Respecting other people's rights is peace, okay? Let's say it, everybody. Respecting other people's rights is peace. Okay, now, the same thing applies to gay marriage. Who you fall in love with, who you live with, whom you marry, that is your human right, okay? And nobody should interfere, take that away from you, or criminalize people because they're gay, lesbian, transgender, queer, however they identify themselves. It doesn't affect you, who somebody else married, okay? So we have to become the messengers of justice and peace. And that means don't wait until somebody brings up the subject. Bring it up yourself, especially with your families. Bring it up to them and say, my friend Pepe, he's gay, okay? And my other friend Lola, she's a lesbian. And I also have a friend who is transgender. And right now they're making laws in states like Florida that say, don't say gay, all right? Really? I think gay is good, don't you? Yeah, gay is good. So you know what I call those people? I call them the haters, okay? They're the haters. And we believe in joy, we believe in supporting people, so we have to fight the haters. And I know you have some up here in your area too. We have some in our area too, okay? We have some. And so sometimes we think California, Washington State, we're cool. We don't have to worry about those things. But we have haters in our communities. And so we're up against those haters. So that's why it's important that we say to people, when it talks about the issues of gay marriage, of women's reproductive rights, that, what? Don't let that influence people the way that they vote. Because a lot of Latinos and people of color, they vote the wrong way on those issues of gay marriage and women's right to abortion. So that's why it's important that we, all of us here, become the messengers and explain that to people, okay? That, that they shouldn't use these issues in a political way, because these issues hurt people. There's another word I'm going to talk about. It's the F word, not the one you think, okay? It's fascism. So a lot of us think, what is fascism? Well, fascism comes from a German word that means to punish people, to hurt people. And the things I've been talking about is what some politicians are trying to do, trying to hurt people, like they talk against immigrants, right? They want to keep immigrants in jail. Well, that's what we're fighting against, okay? Fascism. And there was a Spanish philosopher named José Ortega y Gasset. And he wrote a book called The Revolution of the Masses. And he said in his book, if you do not have an educated citizenry, that means us, if people are not educated, then the greedy, the corrupt, and the powerful will rule. They will govern, okay? They will govern. The greedy, the powerful, and the corrupt will govern. And so that's why it's so important that all of us, give that message out there and tell people why it's important for them to participate. Because our democracy right now is at risk. And we saw that on January 6th, that's happening. And a lot of our families that they're here in the United States, this is what we're fighting for, to save our democracy. And who is going to do that again? Who's going to do that? Who's going to defend our democracy? Much louder? All right, I'm glad to hear that. So I know that we're all up to the task and that we can make it happen. And I want to tell you a little bit about my foundation, the Dolores Huerta Foundation. One of the things that we're working on is stopping the school-to-prison pipeline. Stopping the school-to-prison pipeline. In the United States of America, we have more people in prison than China or India. Think about that. China and India, they have billions of people in their population, billions. United States, we have about 300 million. How can it be that we have more people in prison in the United States than those other countries? That is the face of fascism, okay? That is the face of fascism. And we know that our schools have had that school-to-prison pipeline. Our foundation, the Dolores Huerta Foundation, we sued our high school district in Bakersfield, California, because they had expelled, thrown out of school, 2,500 students in 1 year. Students of color, black and brown students, okay? We sued them, and guess what? From 2,500 expulsions, it is down now less than 21. Less than 21 because of our lawsuits, okay? So we have a huge education program where we organize the students and we organize the parents. And you know what? They may not speak English very well. They may not be citizens yet. But you know what? When they get in front of those school boards and they demand that they make the changes, they do, okay? Because we know, if not, guess what? We can take them out, right? We can take them out and put our people in. So I'll give you an example. One of our we call them Vecinos Unidos. One of our vecinas, they didn't have a gym for their school, a gymnasium. And sometimes the kids couldn't go out and play because we have a lot of contamination of the air there. So what they did, they went door to door, they got signatures, and they have a brand new gymnasium right now, state-of-the-art gymnasium in a place called Wheat Patch, California. Okay, if you never heard of Wheat Patch, that's where they actually filmed The Grapes of Wrath. Maybe some of you don't know about that movie, or maybe some of your teachers can show it to you, but that's when a lot of the Okies came to California to work in the farm, to work as farm workers. Okay, then she got herself elected to the school board. And then the principal wanted to do away with the breakfast program for the farm worker kids. So guess what she did? She got all the board members to fire the principal and keep the breakfast program, okay? So that's power. That's power. So we know that we can use that kind of power, and it's so simple. We come together, we take direct action together, and then that's how we change the policies. Again, by electing good people to the school board, good people to the state legislature, good people to the Congress of the United States, and then we can make it happen, okay? So that's how we change things, okay? So I think we're gonna have some questions from the audience. All right. Thank you so much, okay? Stick around, there's more to come.
And I would make note that there are 2 microphones here on the side for folks if they would like to go ask questions, and we have staff that can run a microphone to somebody if they can't get back.
Hello? Dolores, can you hear me? Yes. Thank you so much for coming here today. This is quite a wonderful thing. I'm just curious, do you now or would you ever consider helping another organization working on legislation to improve the U.S. agriculture?
Yes, we do ally with a lot of organizations, and you're going to like what I'm going to say right now. One of the bills that we just worked on last year, and it passed the California State Legislature, undocumented people in California are going to be covered under our health care system. Think about that.
Well, thank you. The reason why I'm asking is my organization, we're actually making great progress to help small and medium-scale farms in the state of Washington, and I'm wondering if I could either talk to you after your keynote or make an appointment to talk about possibly working together.
Absolutely. And our organization is called Dolores Huerta Foundation, and we're on the website doloreshuerta.org, doloreshuerta.org. But you have people in Washington State, by the way, that work with the United Farm Workers and that know our organizing methods. One of them is a guy named Lupe Gamboa, who happens to live in Seattle, and he went through the same training program that Cesar and I went through. But I can connect you with him. But yes, we need to start that house meeting, the way that we organize people little by little, family by family, in their living rooms, and then we bring them all together, and then they take direct action. And that's because once they understand that one person by yourself, you can't do anything, but you have to organize people to take that action together. Before we organized the Farm Workers Union, there had been many attempts to organize farm workers by different labor unions, and all of the attempts failed because you had one person that was out there talking for the farm workers. It doesn't work that way. And it took us 3 years when we started the union before we had the strike in Delano. 3 years of meeting with people in their homes, telling them not to be afraid, reminding them that they had power. And so when we started that strike in Delano, that people were already organized, okay? And of course, the Filipino workers were not on strike first, but then we had to support them because they were the minority of the workers, and that's how we won. And then when the strike didn't work, because we're so close to Mexico that they could bring in strike breakers overnight, then we went on the boycott. And we farm workers went all over the United States of America, farm workers, talking to audiences like you, asking them to boycott grapes. So they went to New York, they went to Chicago, they went to Texas, they went to Canada, they went to Europe. At the end of the day, 17 million Americans in the United States stopped eating grapes, okay? 17 million. And so that's the way that we do it. We just got to get out there and talk to people, making them understand what our situation is and why we need their help. And especially I talked about getting another amnesty. Well, we just need a few more votes in the Senate to make it happen, and now in the Congress too, because we have more haters that have been elected to the Congress, okay? So we have to do the work to make sure we get more of our people elected. And sometimes here in California and in Washington State, we say, oh, we're good. We have good people that represent us. But we all know people in Texas. We all know people in some of these other states that we have to call them and tell them why it's important for them to vote. Because we can get another legalization bill. And equal rights for women. Do you know that that is not in the Constitution of the United States of America? And it is right now in the Senate. Nancy Pelosi, when she was a Speaker of the House, they passed it, equal rights for women. But now it's stuck in the Senate. Like our legalization is stuck in the Senate, okay? And so we only need a few more senators out there to be able to get amnesty, equal rights for women, free daycare, the things that, or maybe affordable daycare for women. So we just need to do a lot more work, okay? So if you know people in other states, call them and tell them, all right, we need you guys to act also, okay? Don't leave it up to all of us.
All right, thank you. Yeah, I'll reach out to you about Lupe.
Thank you.
Hello, Dolores. My name is Rafael Pruneda, originally from Othello, Washington. I just wanted to say that since I was about a boy of 5 years, a couple of years ago, I learned your name because my mother actually protested in grapes for the University of Washington and Washington State University. She was very proud of that. And I remember as a boy just hearing that story and wondering what protest means, you know? And she sat me down and my siblings and was able to really explain that. So to see you here today is a huge honor. It's just kind of a full circle moment. And so gracias por tus palabras, sus palabras, excuse me. And I guess my question is a fun question. This generation has access to music like no other. So what is one of your songs that you could just jam out to and that just makes you smile?
A joke or just?
Just a song, a song. Is there something that comes on the radio that you just really enjoy, or that when you hear it, it just brings a special meaning to you?
Well, when I think of that song, What's Going On, you know, Marvin Gaye, you know, What's Going On, Picket Sign, okay? That reminds me that we have to just continue to struggle in the movement, okay? And not only that, but that we're going to win. In the long run, we're going to win. Yeah, what's going on?
Excuse me, Dolores. Oh. Hola, buenas tardes. I have a question for you. So recently online, I've seen rhetoric claiming that the ideas that Cesar Chavez had on immigration damaged the community. Would you agree? I wanted to get your thoughts, and do you think you would agree as well?
I didn't get that. Could you repeat that? I'm sorry.
Yeah, so recently I've seen online rhetoric claiming that the ideas Cesar Chavez had on immigration hurt the migrant community. Would you agree? Or I wanted to get your thoughts on that. And would you think Cesar Chavez would agree as well?
Well, I know there's been some of the haters out there that have tried to spread that message, but United Farm Workers, from the very beginning, we had more undocumented, and today, todavía, we have more undocumented people in the union than any other organization, okay? When Cesar and I first started organizing, one of the things that we did, right after we ended the Bracero program, they legalized thousands of people. And Cesar and I, and those of us that were working, we legalized with we did the papers and found the support system for many people to get their legalization status, okay? After we passed the amnesty bill, which I worked on that bill, you guys, for 4 months in Washington, D.C., we literally had thousands, maybe over 1 million people that got their legalization, not only farm workers, but also people in the cities got their legal status, okay? And it was United Farm Workers that pushed that bill, okay? We're the ones that pushed that bill. So when they say that somehow UFW was against undocumented people, that is a lie. That is an outright lie. And I can prove it because so many, even of the farm workers in the union, I would say over half of them are undocumented, okay? But they all got the legalization status with the amnesty bill. Another thing, when we passed the Agricultural Labor Relations Act for farm workers to have the right to unionize, one of the things that we put in the law is that all undocumented workers were going to have the same rights as citizens. So when people say that it's just an outright lie. And I can say this because I lived it, okay? I lived it.
Hi, thank you. My name is Carrie. I'm the director of Student Services, and I have a question about the arc of your activism. So I'm middle at this point to have done activism in the South in particular, and what that looks like as you've gone through your life. Young 20, when you're out there on the street versus being on the table making policy. What would you say as our grow and go into other generational spots? How have you, if you reflect on that growth or that arc, how does that look different in different pieces of your?
That's a really good question because, we belong to another organization called the Community Service Organization before Cesar and I started the United Farm Workers. And Cesar came out of that organization also. And in the Community Service Organization, we did a lot of services, like I talked, helping people get their legalization status, helping people when they needed food, when kids got in trouble, going to advocate for them, et cetera. We were doing things for people, When we started the union, it was a different story. We were not doing things for people. we had to convince people that they had to do for themselves, okay? They had to do for themselves. And that's a whole different animal, okay? Because when you're helping people out, you feel really, really good, you know? It makes you feel nice that you were able to help somebody. But when you're trying to get people to get rid of their apathy, to stand up for themselves, like I'm talking to all of you here today, that is really very hard and very different. And so I think that's the one thing that we really have to think about. So well, it's not so much about, well, yeah, we do have to empower ourselves to get the fortitude that I talked about, the strength to go out there and talk to people. But we have to think of ourselves as leaders, as empowering other people, okay? Empowering other people, talking to somebody that you know, getting them to get involved, getting them to get engaged, make them understand that as we grow our power, this is how we become stronger. I always say that the power is like love, okay? The more you spread it, the stronger it grows, okay? Power is the same way. Once you get power, then you have to share it, and you have to empower other people, because if not, then we implode. You know, so power has to be shared, and we have to go out there and make people understand that they have power. I hope that answers your question. Thank you. So I guess we've come to the end of our talk here. But before I leave, I do want to ask all of you to do me a favor. I'm going to ask you all to stand up. And I'm going to ask you all a question, and I know you know the answer, okay? And this is the question. I'm going to ask you who's got the power, and I want to wait for me, okay? I'm going to ask you who's got the power, and I want you to say, we've got the power. And then I'm going to say, what kind of power? And I want you to say, people power, okay? Oh, before I say that, one more thing, though. When we think of farm workers, we talk about, you know, during the pandemic, they talked about essential workers. They talked about the firemen, and they talked about the policemen and the healthcare workers. But we still have to think, who is the most essential worker of all? The person that feeds us, right? Farm workers are the most essential workers of all. And our job is to keep fighting to make sure that they can have a union, which is, you don't have that law in Washington State yet, okay? That they can have a union, so that they can get the same benefits and the same wages, okay, that the firemen and the policemen and the health workers get. That's got to be our commitment to farm workers while we think about Farm Worker Week. So we've got to make sure that in Washington State, they pass a law that the farm workers can have a union, okay, like we did in California. And maybe you can do it without a strike, okay? I know they have a Hispanic legislative day here in Washington State, so show up for that and start saying, we want union rights for farm workers, okay? Oh, and by the way, I'm going to share this with you also and ask you to join. On my birthday, April 10th, the Washington State Legislature is going to have a Zoom, okay? And I'm going to ask you all to join in and help me celebrate my 93rd birthday. And I know you're all going to give me a birthday present, right? Because you're all going to commit to go out there and knock on doors for this in the next election, okay? And talk to people and get people to become citizens and get people to vote. Okay, now we'll go back to the two questions. First question is, who's got the power? You're going to say, we've got the power. Second question, what kind of power? People power. And I want you to shout it really loud so the haters can hear us. Okay, all those haters out there, let's go. Who's got the power? What kind of power? People power! Are we going to use our power to save our democracy, to stop the school-to-prison pipeline, to make sure farm workers get the rights that they deserve? What do we say? ¿Se puede o no se puede? Sí se puede! Okay, let's all do it together with an organized hand clap. Let's go. Sí se. And one more, Viva for Cesar Chavez, who just had, 31st of March was his birthday, okay? Cesar Chavez never had a chance to go to high school. He never had a chance to go to college, but he was a genius. And we always have to remember that. If our parents or our tios, our grandfathers never went to school, that doesn't mean that they're not educated, okay? In Spanish, educación means you're civil, that you care about people, you conduct yourself in a good way, and that you also become an activist. Okay, I'm adding that. Okay, so I'm going to say, que viva Cesar Chavez, everybody shout viva. Que viva Cesar Chavez! Viva! Que viva Cesar Chavez! Viva! And I will say, I'm going to say Cesar Chavez, you say presente. Cesar Chavez! Presente! Cesar Chavez! Presente! Cesar Chavez! Presente! Muchas gracias. Thank you so much. Thank you very much. No, thank you very much.
And don't run off just yet, Dolores. In the spirit of your birthday coming up, we do have a couple of gifts to present to you that we will send out to you. So first, I want to invite to the center of the stage over here, Marita. We have a gift a la Washington State. We have presented by some of our mechistas here on campus. This is a gift basket with Cosmic Crisp, a lot of Washington State University stuff. So in the spirit of your birthday, happy birthday, Dolores. We'll be able to get this to you as you take down to California.
Okay, so hello. I would like to ask Dr. Carla Blanco. She's right over here. Dr. Carla is the president of La Alianza de WSU, which is our Latinx Alumni Association. And her and I would like to present you, Dolores, with something very special. This enduring honor is reserved exclusively for friends of Washington State University who have made a positive difference for WSU through unbridled dedication, loyalty, and support. So on this day of April 3rd, 2023, on behalf of the Washington State University Alumni Association and La Alianza de WSU, we would like to bestow upon you Dolores Clara Fernandez Huerta, an Adopted Cougar Award. We also would like to give you and present to you our famous Vamos Coug shirts. And on the back of this is what you coined and made famous, Sí se puede.